Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of The Art of Volunteering. I'm your host, Stormy Bell. Today, we have one of my dear friends with us, Luis Colmenares, and he is a volunteer at heart. Let me read some of the places he volunteers in the greater Philadelphia region: Chester County Futures, Maternal Child Health Consortium, Casa de Venezuela, Latin at SAP, Tent, ACLAMO, and the Downingtown Food Pantry. He was born in Venezuela and moved to the United States in 1999. For the last 28 years, he's worked at SAP and for over 35 years in the IT field. Welcome, Luis.
Thank you, Stormy, for the opportunity. Finally, we made it. I'm happy
I
for
know we've been going at this trying to find a date for a while now. This is awesome.
that.
Okay, as I already mentioned, you are a volunteer at heart. And I know you do a lot of different things at different capacities. Can you share your volunteer journey?
Well, I think all started in Venezuela when I born. My mom, she is work on healthcare area. She's a physical therapy retired, and she was the president of the Venezuelan National Physical Therapists. She's a big health person down in Venezuela, and I know the way that she did her job and she was serving. She had patients that she never charged them uh, because she thought that was she was doing something good. She was never intended to become a rich person through physical therapist. She was working on the hospital part time. She had a private practice. So I saw that, and I always thought, well, my mom should be getting more money about from this. But later, I understood that she's more like something that she did, and she always quote um, uh, Mother Teresa from Calcutta that she's. It doesn't sound pretty good in English, but in Spanish, if you don't, it sounds nice because if you if you're born to serve, you deserve to live, something like that. So serving is something that Mother Teresa from Calcutta did enormously, and I think she inspired my mom, and then my mom inspired me. But I did a very little volunteer in Venezuela for some reason. But I remember one before I moved to the U.S. There was a big tragedy in La Guaira, and that's kind of the ocean. There was a mudslide that killed like 100,000 people. So I remember I was there and I think I need to do something. There's something that needs to be done. We need to help. So I called a friend of mine who has a pickup truck, and we spent like 4 days bringing back and forward food and stuff to the airport. We couldn't get there because the, the the government didn't allow you to go down there, but we were able to help providing food and go from people drop the food and anything needed in places, and because of the truck, we were able to pick it up, take it to the airport, and we did that, for 4 days, constantly. So that's kind of what I left when I left Venezuela. Always thinking, oh, should have been doing more or something like that. So when I moved here, I didn't know anybody. So I worked for SAP, and that's about it. And I didn't have a network back then in 2000, 2002, 2003. And around 2004, I met other fellow Venezuelans that were around the area that have this idea to create an organization called Casa de Venezuela to gather people from the same cultural background and learn and do stuff. So it was a full volunteer type of thing. I was just a member. I like to do this. So I was into music, or I'm still into music. So I played a couple of instruments. I met another fellow Venezuelans, and we decided to put together like a small little band. And because we were tied to Casa de Venezuela, people start asking, why don't you do you have any Venezuelan band that can play for this International Day, this Hispanic Heritage Month? So we started to go places, and that was volunteer. We never got paid. We did it just because of the fan of the music. And then we met our director. She was very professional, and she actually worked us to go to a higher level. And then this organization in 2004 started growing because all the Venezuelans learned about it, and they started moving into the region. Uh, and we started growing, and all of a sudden, uh, it was interesting the fact that I was in an organization. At the same time, within SAP, they're really into volunteering. And and I said, well, I can do that. I'm doing this for Casa de Venezuela. They were things that can do for SAP that can help Casa de Venezuela. They have these programs that called Do for Doer. So if you volunteer time, they gave cash to the organization. So I said, okay, that's a good way to I can raise money for this organization. All of a sudden, I met in 2003 again Lenny and other folks from the Latino Luncheon, a small professional group that started building up in Chester County. And there were very good connections on that group. And a lot of nonprofits showed them, and I started learning about, okay, the mission and what they do, and I found interesting. So all of a sudden, I have a friend in the maternal health child consortium. I said, okay, I can do. What do you need? Do you one time? Of course, I would say just recently married. I have a baby, my oldest, and I still have time. I spend time. We don't have family, so we didn't suffer of those family commitments because we didn't have family here. So we just had time. And then my wife was engaged as well. She wanted to do stuff with Casa de Venezuela, and it was kind of something fun to do. We volunteered, and it was fun. It was music, it was event, it was dinners, it was parties, it was something for the newcomers. And then all of a sudden, I started getting involved with the Latino luncheon, and I met Judy from Chester County Futures, and she explained it to me what does it take? So, okay. So I said, I can help. What can I do? So I said, well, mentoring is a good thing. So, okay, I'll do mentoring. I think I have a lot of experience to help somebody to grow. I really, really like the mission for Chester County Futures to help kids that might not have the opportunity. I say, I'm not consider myself privileged, but I think I'm in a good position. I grew up in a good family with a lot of opportunities. I was able to study in the US for a while, my siblings as well. I was able to join to big companies and they transfer me. So I consider that I was given a lot of opportunities. So I think, well, I should give back. Somebody needs to know what I'm doing. So I started working for Chester County Futures to stuff. So I was doing stuff for Casa de Venezuela at the same time. I did some of the things. I was part of the board. I was given the chance by the director for maternal child consortium. So I was a board member for a couple of years, and I learned a lot from that. And I think it was a great experience. And when I was doing my MBA in Penn State, that was 2001. We talked about volunteer. So volunteer in the U.S. Is different from volunteer in Venezuela. The example is that most of the nonprofits mostly get money from the government in Venezuela. They might get from private, but the effort of funding is different from the effort of funding in the U.S. So you really need volunteers in the U.S. The other ones in Venezuela might be okay. I'll do it. I'm not getting anything, but the funding is not the deal. The government may the process of granting was easier back then. Now I don't think it's the same, but back then it was easier. So I started learning about that, and I felt that well, that's really interesting. Then I learned about the nonprofit is like maybe 10% of the GDP of the U.S. In terms of the money that is spent, the workforce that contracted, uh, and SAP gave a lot of opportunities for you. They have the social responsibility group uh, that open up a lot of opportunities for you. So you can take a training, become a volunteer ambassador, what they call. So you can open a project and gather extra volunteers. SAP gave the opportunity for you to take time of your daily work and do some volunteer. Of course, you have to agree with your manager. Something has to be valid. So I started doing those things, and I found interesting that a company can give me that opportunity. So I put together a work for ACLAMO. And then also in 2008, because I was in charge of a lot of things in Latin America, and a lot of people got transferred or moving into Newtown Square, I found there was nothing for Latinos or Hispanic. People talk to me when they want to do something around the area or talking to Latin America. For whatever reason, my role was involved with Latin America. So I started to put together an organic group that grew up based on the people who's either moving to Newtown Square or moving to other offices in the United States. So for whatever reason, somebody pointed those people to me. So I started learning about DNI. That was in 2006, probably 2005. And it says, well, this is interesting. We never thought about DNI in Venezuela. That's nothing that we, back then, nobody considered that. Uh, there's nothing. That was no talks, zero. Um, so here, starting to hear about it and interest me. And then I put together this group and I asked for permission for who was then the chief diversity officer in 2007, 2008. And I was allowed to create an employee network group called Latinos SAP. And we aligned with the LGBTQ group, with the Black Employee Network, Business Women Network. Some of them, they were like in the starting point or have a few years in the making. And they started the movement within SAP, reinforcing the DNI. So I started training myself in DNI topics and how the ENG works, about other ENG works, what does it mean diversity for U.S. corporations, and DNI requires a lot of volunteer time. Latinos at SAP is a volunteer. It's like uh, handling a nonprofit within the corporation. So
Yeah.
we have our own budget, we have our own group, we have activities, we have events, we have programs, we have some rotation. They give you some visibility. Uh, so I think it's quite interesting because you've seen other networks have grown. Global Business Women Network, which is thousands of ladies that, and everybody, doesn't mean only women, but everybody. Black Employee Network is big. Pride has been a big one. Now you see veterans at SAP. I help the Pan-Asians put together their own group. They came up to me and says, "Well, you have experience," and that was probably 5 years ago. They wanted to create an employee network, and because we were doing this, I've been doing the employee network over 16 years. Uh, so they asked me, "How do you start it? What do you put together? How people know about you?" So I help them to put together kind of a business plan and things like that. I the There have been different, um, uh, good or bad, different chief diversity officers at SAP. I have dealt with all of them. I'm still here. Some of them are gone. So they have created new roles, and DNI is now is being very dynamic. It's all over. It's on TV, so it got a lot of recognition, and that's required a lot of volunteer time, and it's open the door. SAP is really a great corporation to promote volunteer. They do have uh, KPIs of volunteer numbers. They ask you to be kind of an ambassador and create volunteer networks. They have what they call the social sabbatical. So there's some internationals, there's some local. I did a local in a nonprofit that quite looks like Chester County Futures. It calls Breakthrough Philadelphia. Uh,
Okay.
the the mission is similar, but it's focused on kids then going into the teaching field. So during summer, those kids are able to teach classes through the other breakthrough guys, and in schools they have summer camps or summer classes. They get agreements with universities and schools to do that. So it's pretty interesting. We and I found that type of volunteer very rewarding because you use your skills and to apply it to a problem and help these organizations who might not have the resources to build a communication skill, a technology plan because they didn't have one technology infrastructure to manage all the cases. So it was about 3 months on that. And I've seen some other folks from SAP that went overseas, or some of them that visited other, actually, Chester County Futures participated in, I think, couple of sabbaticals. They didn't allow me to be part of that because I was always already working with Chester County Futures, so they didn't put me into that. So basically, I've been volunteering my time most of the time for Casa de Venezuela, and has changed in different. I've always been in the musical part. I create a program there. One of the signature programs that they have, we call Venezuelan Expressions, and that's a big event. We handle. It's an event that takes about 50 other volunteers. So I'm in charge of that program is to take over. That's in full. The idea of the program is bring talent, musical talent that is in the region that is unknown by the rest of the community, have them to perform so the community knows them and get the recognition. And we invite a guest musician or something from outside to make more appeal to the general public. So the program is this starring person, big star, plus other folks that are very good, but nobody knows.
Okay.
And so that's kind of a nutshell what I'm doing. Uh, Within SAP is always a new opportunity, a new opportunity to volunteer. With Casa de Venezuela, there's a lot of activities I would say that I could do
Right.
uh, because I'm really involved with them. I'm not part of the board. However, they named me a temporary president for the next 4 months. And since I don't want to be the president, but we need to have they going into re-election, but they didn't have anybody because the one left. And I said, okay, I'll take it. But I don't want to go to the Philippines. So it's very dynamic. It's not static. We survived the pandemic, so which is good. We went through a strategic uh, uh, um, what do you call it? Strategic planning.
Yes.
This as we did with Chester County Futures. It's very interesting. I've learned a lot. I think the learning experience overall is positive. You learn about a strategy, manage a nonprofit. You meet extraordinary people like you and others that being in the power of just doing volunteer presidents, CEOs. You get to. I was able to be in several SAP all hands meetings because I was part of the DNI, or I've been in involved with folks like that I would never in my mind meet, like the governor, Governor Wolf, even the state representatives that I met through Casa de Venezuela, or just in Latino luncheon, which is also volunteer. It's less demanding because it's only one. Well, I won't say less demanding. It's really demanding, but you have to take it's once a month. We got a scholarship, and I think one of the things when you ask me one of the most rewarding things of volunteer, we've been giving scholarships since 2012 through Latino Launch, and we came out and realized the other day when we were talking the last party we did, we had given $50,000, over $50,000 in scholarships.
That's amazing.
And I've seen the folks the other day, one of the kids that we did the scholarship, he graduated as a policeman. And he said, when we first interviewed him, I want to be a police because in Norristown, there's no a single police that speaks Spanish. And I know that's a problem with the community because they cannot communicate with them. And there's a lot of misconceptions about folks that are being there and the policeman. So we met the guy the other day, graduated, and we were so happy. And I've seen some of the folks from the Latino luncheon. The last party we have a lady that she was saying, "Listen, I have I'm a uh, I'm a DACA student, so I'm a dreamer. Nobody will give me anything, zero, zero. So for her and her family, it was really, really difficult to get funding to go to Westchester University. So we give her uh, the scholarship is $1,500. It
Right.
says you cannot imagine how much money that means to us because my mom cleaned houses and my dad does landscaping, but he's not the owner of the company. So the fact that she had us back her up give her like more motivation on the network. So she went to the party to tell us how much our scholarship mean to her and her family. One another rewarding quote while I was doing mentorship for one of my mentees at Chester County Future. I was helping him to complete universities applications.
Okay.
We finished that night, and the parents come. He was in Coatesville, and the parents came to pick him up. And the mom grabbed me and says, "You know what? I think this is the best thing that we ever happened to us, because my other two kids said, when I'm going to high school, I want to have a mentor like my brother does it, so I
Oh,
can go to college too.
that's
Uh,
awesome.
Fast forward, one of the kids went to a Marines, and she's applying to college, and you can see, the circle have been broken. You have three kids that might not go into poverty anymore. Actually, my mentee is a manager in Home Depot. He's doing great. I've talked to him. Maybe I see him because Home Depot is close to my house. I see them many times, and he speaks about his experience and about his siblings. And he's good. He's flying to Disney for vacations with his girlfriend, and he's doing a life that he never expected, that his parents never gave into him, because his dad only do he works in fence, and the mom doesn't only do housework, and he's the first one to graduate from higher
Higher
institution.
education.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I absolutely love that. Um, that was one of my questions, is always asking the impact that people see from their efforts, because um, as much as, well, first we do it for the other people, but when we have that that I don't know, say gratitude or just the inspiration when you give of your time, it's very rewarding. It comes back, kind of like it's a full circle. You're giving out and you're receiving at the same time. So it's just very powerful that way. So I love the fact that you're still in touch with your mentees and you're seeing that long term investment of that time. So, but circling back to where you're talking about the SAP and the volunteering in Casa de Venezuela, you sound like a volunteer entrepreneur. Like you go in and you see and you start to do and you put the pieces together. I think that's very interesting, that the way that worked out, just from what you were saying. Would you consider yourself a volunteer entrepreneur?
I would say entrepreneur sounds nice. It's a great designation. Maybe yes. I've been working Casa de Venezuela as a startup. Now there's 20 years old, not
Right?
startup anymore. But I would say that I like the fact that you can build stuff. You can create, and you have the opportunity, because in some cases it's an open field in things that you do for these organizations. You can create a program, and if you have the trust and you build the trust with the organization, and you know very well the mission and what you want to achieve, you can create programs and drive some initiatives that you might not do it in your regular job. In my regular job, I might not be able to do those things. I'm just going to do my task. I have a customer, and there's a set of a playbook. And yes, I have some room to innovate or to prove stuff or do my own, but most of the things are set in stone,
Yeah.
kind of. In the nonprofit, it's you live of what you get, because you don't have enough resources, you don't have enough people, you don't have enough money, so you need to be creative to achieve the goals or to comply to the mission. So it's really an innovative field that you can create anything you want if the nonprofit allow you to do so. We I created this program called the Venezuelan Expression, and I pitched that to the. I didn't have any idea before. I didn't have any production background, uh, nothing. Uh, but I said, well, this sounds like a good idea, and we start building up, and we put together a plan and funding and what we do, and has been a program since 2007 maybe. And the same thing happened with other programs. Somebody came with a great idea, and we define it and we put it together. We figure out the resources, and then it's alive. So I think you have an opportunity um, to be innovative in some of these organizations. And even if you don't come up with new things, you really need to have good ideas to stay alive, because organizations, nonprofit, tend to disappear, like for-profit organizations.
Right.
The same way as restaurants fail, nonprofits fails the same. I'm gonna say the same rate, but have the opportunity to fail if you don't have people who drives what's going on, or you don't have the money, or regulations change. You might not be able to get money for insurance, or you have to deal with that. There's a big rotation because people don't get the best salaries in the industry. So volunteer, it's a great help for the people who works in the nonprofit, because you fill a gap that may not be able, not because they don't know it, it's just they don't have the bandwidth. So you fill spaces that is important. uh, so I can do tasks. It's fine. I've been volunteered. Just food pantry is a great opportunity to task volunteer. You go there, give you a task because they don't have enough uh, manpower. You do it, you're done. You feel fine. You did a great job. That's it. Uh, you know that they need it, so you do it. Fortunately, I haven't been able to do it in the last months or so. But you do it and you feel rewarded because you complete it. We clean a basement in ACLAMO and stock jackets. That's fine. You do a great job. You feel at the end of the day it's a small task that takes 15 hours. You do it, done. So you complete something that they really need, but it's not that you're gonna do it doing all over and over. And then if you're a volunteer, you it's fine. You can do tasks because that helps.
Right.
Every single help is valuable. They need it. All nonprofits need it. Every single help, even sharing an email of an event, so 2 3 people can attend. Those are typical things that they're looking for. But if you want to be more involved, you can. I think a great opportunity is being a board member
Right.
or being a committee member, because now you're in. Now you have to throw ideas, you have to commit, you have some accountability, and you will see an end product of that. If you're a board member, you actually can influence where the organization is going and some of the decisions that be taken. And one of the things that I've realized, there are not many Latinos in boards.
Right.
Uh, there are very few. Maybe because they are scared of the responsibility, or maybe they feel they might not be very welcome. Maybe they feel they're not prepared. I would say I never have a preparation. Well, uh, it's a lie. When it was in Casa de Venezuela, we tried to learn that, so we help us to learn because we were there. We didn't know. Okay, let's put some money in and invest some time to learn how to become a board member. So we took some training, and then I took that leap to be part of the maternal board. I was given the opportunity, so I learned. At the very beginning, I was kind of quiet just to figure out what's going on. Then I realized that you can challenge some of the things in the board, and you can learn from things that are going on. The strategic planning that we did for Chesapeake County Future was an amazing experience. Unfortunately, I couldn't participate in a retreat that was planned because I was in town. I did a retreat in the past, and I know that how valuable that is, especially for board members. Uh, some people get nervous because they typically uh, ask for money and say, "I don't have money. Why can't I become a board member?" And it's a hassle. I understand because you might not have funds, but I think if you give a lot of time, it's more valuable than the money. And sometimes your time brings money into the organization because
Right.
that's kind of the big focus. If you put together a program that eventually brings thousands of dollars, it's fine. If you have that contact that actually have bring and get enchanted by the organization, they decided to put some money. So I think it should be more Latinos involved in boards and committees. I know there are plenty involved in a specific Latino organizations, but Chester County Future is an example that is an hybrid. The customers are Latino descendant kids and other kids. So when you think about it, what type of decisions are taken. I've considered that, mentors that speak Spanish. So I remember I talked to the parents because they didn't speak English and they felt more comfortable talking to me, uh, even though we're not the same nationality, but they felt comfortable that they can speak in their language and ease them a little bit the fear have the kid going out with an adult that's not them. Especially Latinos fears a lot of that. So I think I wish we can have more Latinos in boards and committees in organizations that are not specifically serving Latinos, that they name like Casa de Venezuela, or not Casa de Venezuela, but Chester County Futures or Maternal. We have Latinos in Maternal and other organizations, just because there is a need uh, for cultural stuff. Not really because of that, but I think it will be a good opportunity for everybody. And I learned statistics about a lot of Latinos in the U.S. do not volunteer that much. I don't know what's the reason, but I've read it. I think it's a shame that we don't have often give more money. I think there's a lot of people who volunteers. I think I know great volunteers that do like Nelly from ACLAMO and all the folks that they're not only champions, they're superheroes. They sweat the volunteering all over, and they are in their mind. They're set for that. But I think if you're part like me, a corporate or you own a business, there's always room to be part of, and just a part to give back to the community. I think I remember Pope Francis said one time that empathy. So we humans are different from animals. We feel empathy, but empathy is something that you need to exercise. It's not that I'm empathize with something. The more that you do, the more that you empathy with something or somebody or situations, the more easy for you is to be helping others because it's difficult sometimes. And I think today in the society we live, we start to getting some numbness about things that are going on that because there's happening too much that we say, okay, it's all over again, and you start not feeling that empathy because it's kill somebody every 5 minutes,
Right.
uh, and then you start. Well, then now you feel like death is something common, it's normal. Well, it's not normal. We cannot normalize, cruelty, hunger. Uh, we cannot normalize that. We need to do something. Every single little thing, you need to do it because you cannot normalize the type of poverty is not normal. The fact that we live in a society that there's still people hungry.
Right.
And I don't see I go to the food pantry. How come people get hungry? Because we're giving away food. There's no reason for that. And we can even share to places. I don't know. So we need to do our job, do diligence to figure out where to help. And I think helping others is appreciated and it give you a lot of um, satisfaction. It's kind of selfish to say to give you satisfaction to yourself, but definitely somehow you feel better when you give and than when you get. Because when you get, you need to okay, thank you. But when you give, nobody's asking, especially if you give your time, not money. If you give your time, if you give your ideas, your knowledge, and I think that's something that SAP does quite good. The skill volunteer is important. I have skills that, if applied to another field, might give different results. Uh, and I give ideas to people that might not have the same experience. They might give different results. Uh, I remember when we did the breakthrough Philadelphia with my other two colleagues, we were sitting there as it's interesting how much we know. And these folks, if not that they don't know, if they don't have time to sit down and think it through it. So we give them, I don't know how many days, 8 days, but fully days.
Right.
Uh, and it says, well, that really makes a difference. And I've seen it in other events from SAP. And I think that does it a lot. And of course, you need to balance what you do with your family, and if you involve, your family, that's good. Sometimes they don't. I don't want to go where you're going. So food pantry is like my gig and my wife. I throw my kids there. Casa de Venezuela, I obligated them to do stuff, so they realize they need to do. So I know that the kids for the kids is tough, but they have learned. They have learned that they need to do for the community. Nothing is for granted, and the best way that you go through that. And they found out that they doing volunteer, they met great people, and they found those people in different areas. Says, "Well, I
Right.
met this guy doing the volunteer. Really, this guy is the boss of something, something." So see, you will be able to meet great people that you.
All right. So, I have a question.
Mhm.
I think it's fun. Some people do, some people don't. In all your experience, can you share a blooper? Something that didn't necessarily go wrong, it just didn't go as planned. And what did you learn from it? What was the lesson that was learned?
Well, you mentioned entrepreneurship and program building and ideas. In many cases, we have put events that nobody show up, zero. And we did the same thing we did for all the programs. We put together the place, we did the advertising in advance, we had a great people to offering. Till the day, only we're expecting 50, only two show up.
Oh my.
And we're wondering what's going on. And it happens in different areas. I did from Casa de Venezuela a couple of events, nobody show up, or less than we expected, maybe a few. So, and within Latinos SAP, same thing. People might be busy with other stuff and do not feel the importance, or maybe have some conflicting interest, or sometimes you feel in some of these some cases that it's always the same people because you see people that's really committed,
Mhm.
and then you see people that might not as committed that stay with you because they feel it's a great idea. And we have brought people to the organization that we shouldn't.
Mm.
It's like about hiring, and we need to deal with that. That have their own agenda, and I think lesson learned from that, especially when you are in a board or in a committee or something, you really need to take your time and get informed about the person. It's not like, okay, they said I'm sign me in, and they sign me in, and then all of a sudden the person is not what you expected, and now you're in a problem because as a volunteer organization, everybody who offer you help, you don't say no because you need the help. So the dangers of that is that you get somebody that might not be. It will be rather than a help, it definitely will be a help.
Yeah.
So besides the events that we have low attendancy, we have some volunteers that, especially in my experience in Casa de Venezuela, that might not. Uh, they did some commitment, but then they were not as good as we expected. So we have to deal with issues around it. Uh, Fortunately, the rest of the organization have done good, but I think that's the same way of companies does bad hiring, or even nonprofits get bad hiring. You get bad volunteers.
Yeah.
Uh, that people just want to be there just because they want the LinkedIn stamp, or
Mm. Yeah.
the Facebook picture, or just to they know that people get involved because that attracts something. I don't know. They just don't do it because they really want to serve. They just do it because they want the glamour of being a
Yeah.
volunteer. Because volunteer is a nice word. Volunteer is a nice word. When somebody says, "Well, you're a volunteer," people say, "Okay, you have the time." It's being recognized. It's people recognize you as a volunteer. It's not easy to give your time out. People doesn't have, it's precious. What just be better, being in a beach Saturday or Sunday, or be in an event in the middle of the city, putting tents out and chairs and dealing with whatever and just being there. So you sacrifice stuff, uh, but you do it for good. You do it because you want it,
Right.
even if you feel bad or sad about it. So you that's kind of what I think is something that went wrong is make sure that when you get your volunteers and people that really value what you do, and they're just not doing it because of they want some likes in Instagram
Yeah.
and Facebook.
Like you said, the picture on Facebook or LinkedIn. That's not the
Right,
reason.
right.
Yeah.
We do that a lot, but because we need the visibility. But there's some people that just do it just because of
Two things you said about volunteers and not necessarily you can't fire volunteer.
that.
It's kind of hard. You got to like work that around a little bit. That's their idea for another place that they would be using their gifts and talents to a greater degree.
Yes, yes. We need to convince that we're not good enough for you. You need
I
something
love
better.
it. All right, Luis, we are at the end of our conversation, and I've just so enjoyed listening to you and hearing about your journey and just the impact that you're making in so many different ways. Um, I'm going to give you the floor. I'd like you to love on all your organizations or pick one or two. Just why should people get involved? Why should people volunteer? What does that look like? Just love on it.
I would say the one that I'm most involved with Casa de Venezuela, but that doesn't mean that I prefer things to do in Casa de Venezuela as well as things to do in Chester County Futures or as a volunteer at SAP. I think people, if you have never volunteered for anything, please take a look. It will be worth it in any organization. I figured out what attracts you, and I'm sure there will be a nonprofit that it might satisfy your needs. If you're into vegetarians, there might be a nonprofit about veggies. I'm sure about it. If you're worried about war hunger, ooh, there are many of those. So any topic that you feel that you might interest, you just take a look and maybe just try to become a volunteer. You don't need to become a board member right off the bat. You just need to get involved and see how it feels and how enthusiastic the people who work in nonprofits are, because they're always happy. I don't, you feel more people sad in the corporations than in nonprofit, uh, because they're doing because they love what they do. They love to serve, and I think it's a great environment. And if you feel like you're tired of your regular job and you want to try something different, volunteering is great. Volunteers, that's why people love volunteer for their churches, because it's something that they feel like. Uh, I think if you find a good opportunity to volunteer of any topic in the church, just take your time. You don't need to do it every day. You don't need to do it
Right.
once a month. You don't need to commit a family. You might not be even to put money in. I think it's a good learning experience rather than given experience. You will learn a lot from what people does, and you find some people that might be so much interesting that have been giving time away because they love to do it, and you will learn a lot from those people in any topic. I've seen CIOs, directors, policemen, and artists, uh, and you met incredible people through the nonprofit uh, uh, world, and and that might take you to places that you would never think you would be there. So I think that would be I would say my advice or my
Yeah.
last call. And if you still have time, if you have figured it out, well, call me. I give you a list of things you can do for Chester County Futures, for TED, for Casa de Venezuela, for Materno. I'm sure I'll find you something.
That's awesome. I absolutely love that. Well, thank you, Luis, for being my guest today. I so appreciated our conversation. To my listeners, thank you for joining in. If you've enjoyed our conversation today, please rate and review the episode wherever you listened. It does help other people hear about the incredible opportunities there are with volunteering and how serving your neighbor helps restore the fabric of our society. So, thank you, and I'll see you next time on The Art of Volunteering. Have a great day.